I am so excited to do this next section with you guys because in the previous lesson we talked about, right, how this program is all about creating a clear signal that the universe then reads, the laws of the universe respond to, and that allows us to create what we desire. So it's all about mastering our inner world, inner state in order to affect the external. And what we're going to cover here is something I have absolutely never ever seen anyone cover in this way. And specifically, we are going to be talking about what this signal actually is, okay? Because people create all sorts of things. People are like, oh, your signal is your thoughts, your signal is your emotions, your signal is your nervous system, your signal is the vibe, your signal is your identity. And as per usual, it's a mixture of a couple of different things. And because of that, we're going to be covering a number of different elements in this program. We're going to be working with the nervous system. We're going to be releasing nervous system charge. We're going to be working with the subconscious. But here, we're going to be talking about what actually makes your signal strong and clear, what makes your signal powerful in a way that the universe actually responds in a way that we want it to respond, that actually creates results that are what we desire, and ideally that are also fast. Now, it's very important that here we release the whole when and how, as we talked about, because there could be so many reasons why something is not happening on the timeline that we desire. Yes, one thing could be the lack of power or coherence in our signal, as we're going to be talking about, but sometimes it's just divine timing. Sometimes it's not meant to be yet. Sometimes there are other things that need to fall into place, right? So we don't want to get too bothered with that element, right? Because a lot of the time then we're going into the control energy, which is not ever coherent. But the stronger and the clearer our signal, the faster also the manifestations will happen, okay? So 3D reality does not respond to effort, right? We talked about it. It does not respond to you throwing a tantrum and wanting and desiring it, screaming at God, like why has shit not happened yet? Totally done before. Recently had that kind of a tantrum in the bathroom, had a big upset moment with God. Then I got my shit together and remembered how things actually worked. However, what reality does respond to is signal strength. And signal strength, we're going to break it down a little bit further here so that you can think about it in more tangible ways. Signal strength has two components. One is power and the other is coherence. So power times coherence equals signal strength. So that is a signal that can travel far and also carries a consistent signature that clearly transmits what you are trying to transmit. You need both power and coherence in order to have a strong signal, okay? So power is basically the volume of your signal. And if we're talking about more specific terms, it's how much energy your system can generate and sustain. Now, in a practical physiological manner, we're going to be looking here at your vitality. So some of you know that before I started working with as a subconscious and frequency expert for entrepreneurs, I actually worked in holistic health, and I have, of course, background also in neuroscience, which involved studying a lot of physiology, molecular biology, genetics, body stuff, right? When I studied natural healing techniques and methodologies and systems, really, I should say, one of the ones that I was really fascinated with, and I spent quite a bit of time studying, was what is known as quantum biology. And quantum biology is really looking at how subatomic particles like electrons, it's also looking at photons, etc., how they travel around the body, how they communicate in the body, right? And when you start studying quantum biology, you understand that the body is a battery. And when the voltage is correct, when the current can flow seamlessly through the body, then we're healthy. Then the redox balance is correct, inflammation is low, the body is communicated easily, the signal is coherent around the body across all the tissues, and that creates also a powerful, strong signal. In practical terms, we're also talking here about your capacity. It's capacity to lead, it's capacity to take projections, it's stamina, It's ability to execute and get stuff done, but it's also capacity to withstand pressure. Okay? So if this power of the signal is low, that will normally happen in a system that is burned out, a system that is sick, a system that has been on overdrive for too long. In that moment, your signal will be quiet, even if your subconscious mind is aligned, even if your mindset is on point, even if you are coherent in terms of your subconscious, because you simply don't have the power. Okay? We're going to go into like the 4 different permutations for the signal strength, but you get the point, right? When we have high power, we can have strong signal. Now, the other component is coherence. And coherence is how the signal is focused, okay? So this is when your conscious desire and your subconscious agree. So when that happens, you will know who you are, you will know what you want, you will be clear on your desires, and then also your subconscious, which includes your subconscious beliefs and corresponding emotions, thoughts, and actions, they're all going in the same direction. So you're executing on everything you need to execute, and it's relatively easy to execute. Your energy isn't scattered. You're thinking in a manner that's actually in alignment with what you desire. So if you want 10 clients in your offer, you're not thinking, oh my God, what if no one signs up? Oh my God, do I need to do X, Y, Z in order to attract? Oh my God, da 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 da. Like, you're not going down these spirals, right? The thoughts are aligned. It's like, ooh, cannot wait for someone to join. Oh my God, it's going to happen in a minute. I'm so excited to do this. You're feeling emotions that are in alignment with that. So you're excited about this. You have this positive expectation, right, of this actually happening. So this happens when we actually clear any sort of distortion and contradiction in your subconscious mind that is opposing what you actually desire. You are going to create your results incredibly fast once your subconscious mind agrees with what you consciously desire. Like, you're unstoppable, and it's gonna flow, it's gonna be easy, and it's gonna feel really good. Okay? So when coherence is low, we have different parts of ourselves, our emotional body, mental body, physical body, etc. They're all going in different directions, right? It's like putting 3 different locations into your GPS and then wondering why you're not reaching the destination you want to reach. Y'all know how that would end, right? Like, not very well. And what that actually creates is scattered and contradictory energy. So in terms of how that practically manifests is self-sabotage at the mental, emotional, or action level. When coherence is high, the energy is focused and you are very efficient. Now, when we create the permutations of that, we get 4 possible states based on power and coherence. The first state is high power and high coherence. This is what we want. This is what we're working towards. This is the CO frequency signal where you're grounded, you're embodied, you're executing with immense efficiency, immense power. Doubt is very low in that state. You know where you're going. You have 100% conviction you will get there, even if you don't have all the answers, even if there's uncertainty, you just know it's going to happen. This is the signal that makes people insanely magnetic. It may have happened to you that you were on Instagram scrolling through a number of different videos, and there was someone there speaking, and he just stopped you in your tracks, and you listened, and something captivated you. Or you were on a podcast and you were hearing someone speak and you were just like, whoa, like it moved something in you. Or perhaps it happened to you that you were at a party, at an event, and someone walked into the room and people just turned their heads. People just notice that person. It's like their energy walks into the room before they do, and you're just like, whoa. That is a person that has a very powerful signal, and normally a coherent signal as well. Okay? Now, I am going to say here something that I wasn't going to include, but it's important to make this very clear. You can have your signal coherent with your desires without being virtuous. You can have a coherent and powerful signal without pure intent. Okay, so pure intent is a very important virtue, is a very important for those who have contracts with Creator that they came here to raise collective consciousness and be healers. But there are people who aren't here with that intention. Those people can manifest extremely powerfully and cause a lot of damage. Okay, we see a lot of those people in leadership positions. Their signals are insanely coherent, they're not moral, they're not ethical, they don't have pure intent, they don't have compassion as a virtue, those people will never be able to achieve certain abilities in terms of that are the high frequency virtues required for, like collocation, levitation, etc. But it doesn't matter, they can still manifest extremely powerfully. They oftentimes also have contracts with darker entities to do that. I'm recording this in case anyone, whoever's listening to this later, I'm recording this on 11th of February 2026, so we are right on the week 2 since the release of the Epstein files, where obviously a lot of that became very clear. But I want to make this very clear so that we're not conflating virtue with powerful manifestation. You can be an extremely powerful manifester, and you can be honestly like a piece of shit in terms of your values, in terms of your virtues, and in terms of what you're creating on this planet. So just keep in mind that whenever you're picking people to follow, and to learn from them, check their values. Just because they have amazing results, just because they're making a lot of money, doesn't mean they are doing it the way you want to be doing it. And you should always be checking on whether or not they're actually aligned with your values and your virtues, because you can absolutely manifest powerfully and create an extremely coherent signal without having the virtues of pure intent, compassion, empathy, etc., that are necessary to actually create a harmonious and life-affirming, we should say, result on this planet. So the second state is high power and low coherence. This is chaotic overdrive. This is chaos, and we see that a lot in very, very masculine way of doing business, okay? So this is when the signal is very loud. We're doing more. We're seeing aggressive sales techniques with that. But we're seeing also that with people who are overachievers. Here, you have a lot of energy, you have a lot of stamina, you have a lot of ambition, but you're not necessarily internally aligned. You can still have a lot of internal dissonance, a big lack of coherence. So what that may mean in practice is you may still have a lot of fears of visibility. You may have a lot of fear of cancellation. You may have a lot of imposter syndrome. You may have a lot of these things, but through pure effort, you still manage to get very, very far. This requires a lot of willpower. And a lot of entrepreneurs that I work with, that's also my default way of doing things. This one can be very hard to detox. Why? Because you got really far with it. You got really, really far with it. So in the system that we're in, by simply working hard, we can get really far. The reality is that when you're working around other systems and people that don't value coherence, right, it's normalized that you're overcompensating with a lot of effort. I will never forget how my boss during my PhD gave me a lot of shit one time because she claimed that she literally said something along the lines, "I expect more urgency from you." Where I pushed back because she tried to blame me on some things that were not, it wasn't actually my fault. And she actually held it against me that I didn't want to go into the whole pressure, urgency, working 16 hours a day because it was inefficient. She was an extremely inefficient person. She was extremely scattered, but she was pushing really hard and working long hours. We see a lot of that in entrepreneurship. It's going to be very important for you, if you created a lot of success, to start detoxing that and deconditioning that step by step. Why? Because your subconscious has a lot of proof that that works. It kept you somewhat stable. It kept you somewhat safe. It probably required a lot of you, and it probably cost you a lot. Most of the time, entrepreneurs who are coming from that kind of pattern are burnt out. They may not even know it. It will show through nervous system states of procrastination, which is, like it can be functional freeze, or it can be just shut down, right? These kind of things where then we think we're lazy, we think we're procrastinating, but we're actually burned out, and our system is pressing the brakes really hard because it's saying we cannot do this anymore. If you keep working in this kind of way, it's going to lead to a burnout, and there are two possible ways it's going to go. one of the ways is that you're going to be pushing really hard and you're not going to be seeing results. So if I'm seeing someone who's doing all the strategy, who's posting consistently, who's creating content, who's doing the things, investing, etc., and they're seeing mediocre results or no results, we are having this issue. We're having high power, low coherence problem, and we need to really work on the subconscious. The other option, which is arguably worse, is that you are going to create success, but then you're going to hit a ceiling really powerfully. Because here's the reality, you don't have unlimited energy. And when you're out of alignment, you are actually accessing a tiny amount of energy available to you. Because when you're actually aligned to yours, like your soul, when you're actually aligned to source, you pretty much have access to unlimited energy. This is why people who meditate a lot, who are really spending a lot of time in altered states of consciousness, who are incredibly aligned, they actually need very little sleep. I will never forget when I came from my first ayahuasca retreat in 2018, I didn't sleep for a couple of weeks. I would sleep 1 or 2 hours a night. I woke up, I was like, we have a saying in Slovenia, I was like a flower. I was like reborn. I had so much energy because I was in such frequency alignment. Obviously lost that. I'm definitely not there at the moment, but when we are in extreme alignment, we have access to sources of energy that we don't even know exist in our mainstream ways of thinking. If you're out of alignment, which you're always going to be, if your signal is incoherent, if you have a lot of subconscious junk, you are going to burn yourself out. And this is what we see with a lot of female entrepreneurs, where they're pushing, building their businesses in a way that's requiring more and more and more power. And they create immense success, multi-8 figures, and then maybe they become mothers or something changes in their lives and they're like, I cannot do this anymore. And they burn an extremely successful business to the ground. We really do not want that. Also, most of the humans I work with are women. If you're a woman, your body is also simply, it has less capacity than an average man's body in this conventional power way. So you're more prone to your nervous and immune systems going haywire, which is why women are vastly more likely to develop autoimmune conditions. I believe something like 75 or 80% of people who suffer from autoimmune conditions are women. Don't quote me on that, you can Google it, but it's a huge percentage, at least 2/3. And this is because we are more sensitive. So it's immensely important that we start deconditioning these patterns of high power, low coherence. Now, the third one is low power and high coherence. This is when you're aligned but under-resourced. So this actually we see decently also in spiritual entrepreneurs as well, where we can have a person who's really aligned. The person is channeling a lot of, whatever. They're channeling higher consciousness, and they have access to a lot of information. They have this beautiful vision. They know what they want. They can talk to spirit. They feel really like, yeah, I'm plugged in, but they are under-resourced. Normally what's happening here is that a person is very aligned in their top chakras from the heart up, but their bottom 3 chakras, so especially the root, is severely blocked, meaning there's a lot of dissonance there with in terms of safety and stability. So we are not really having here with this ever a fully high coherence signal. So if you're high coherent, you are going to be high power if you're fully coherent. But in terms of access to alignment, in the sense of having clarity on who you are, having clarity what you're meant to do, etc., this can happen with low power, okay? And so here what's going to happen is that the signal is going to be clean-ish, but it's going to be too quiet and you won't be actually able to execute. Now, finally, we have low power and low coherence. This is going to be also very common, and here it's going to manifest as being stuck or frozen. So here is just overall, like, we can just call it a bit of a shit show. You're confused, you don't know who you are feeling completely uninspired. Even when you're creating content or you're putting stuff out there, you don't really even have the energy to push and force, and it feels off, whatever you do. So that means you're just having a system that is stuck in overwhelm, and there's a lot of internal contradiction. This is going to be very common with people who have a lot of unprocessed trauma, who have a lot of unprocessed emotion, who have a lot of density and heaviness in their nervous system, in their energy field, etc. And the loops that they are running their system are oftentimes coming in this like push, shut down, push, collapse kind of thing. And the longer we're doing this, the more the system is actually entering survival state, and it's burning even the little energy we have left. So really, for a person like that, if we're talking low power, low coherence, probably the best thing to do would be not to really commit to entrepreneurship in that moment, right? Because entrepreneurship requires a certain level of capacity. And I have had clients who were in that system or that state, and I would recommend get a job, get a job that doesn't require a lot of power, a lot of stamina, a lot of effort from you. Get something so you can get yourself, financially stable, resource, like whatever. Some people may move back to their parents. Some people may find some other ways in which they are just not required to expand a lot of energy, and then start, gently working on these things. Because the reality is that when the system is in a kind of overwhelm, when you're having internal overwhelm and external overwhelm at this level, it's going to be very, very hard to manage it, because you need a lot of capacity and actually a decent amount of power to bring yourself into internal coherence and internal stability if your external is unstable. And when you're not in that state, when you are overwhelmed, when you are stuck, even relatively minor, like even if your external reality is somewhat unstable, somewhat uncertain, that is going to activate the system a lot more, okay? So this is a state that I would say it's going to require a little bit of work to get out of, but most people who are going to enter CO frequency, they're very likely not going to be in this state to actually even come into a program like this. So to kind of summarize, the most powerful signal is when the signal is coherent and powerful, okay? So the most important thing that we're going to be working on throughout CO frequency is we're ditching the paradigm of trying harder, of working harder, or of efforting and hustling. If there are times when you have to do it because it's the best thing to do, you just need to work some late nights, that's fucking fine. But we're not keeping that as a baseline, right? But what we are really working on is we're removing internal opposition. Like, here's the thing, you guys, entrepreneurship is not easy. Like, anyone who thinks that they're gonna become an entrepreneur and it's gonna be easy is not. Well, they're in for a surprise, let me say that. But for most of us, it's a lot harder than it needs to be because we have so much internal opposition, because we have so much subconscious junk. So we are going to be clearing that out, and we're going to be cultivating internal coherence, okay? I alluded to that before, but I'm going to state it again explicitly. When coherence is increased, power naturally increases. So in practice, where we can see this is that when we work on the nervous system, when we release stuck emotion, where we dissolve nervous system charge and tension, health comes back online, digestion improves, immune system improves, your skin improves, cortisol goes down, everything gets better. Blood sugar regulation improves. Everything gets better when your nervous system begins to calm down. So this is your body coming into coherence. And this is why in CO frequency, what we see over and over again is that, yeah, people make money. Yeah, people sign clients, but their health improves. Their relationships improve. Like, I've had people drop addictions, right? Because we are creating more and more of this internal coherence so we can drop the coping mechanisms that we have that are actually just compensating for the severe amount of dysregulation that we're keeping in our bodies. Now, the last thing that I want to just add on here before we wrap this up is coherence again, right? Like we talked in the first lesson, we are not here creating an identity, quote unquote, right? We are restoring. And just like your original true identity is coming back into alignment with your soul's truth, removing everything that's not your soul's truth, in the same way, coherence is your natural state, okay? It's what remains when distortion clears. It's what remains when we return our nervous system into more and more regulated, stable, safe state. Distortion in your field, right? All of the limiting beliefs and corresponding nervous system charge and states, they're there because at some point they kept you safe. Every single limiting belief, quote unquote, every single subconscious belief, as you will see later in the program very clearly when I teach you how to clear that, it serves you. It served you, or it served your ancestors, right? And when we understand and complete this loop where it's still serving you to this day, and we teach the subconscious that you don't need it anymore to be safe, to whatever, there are other, it's not just safety, there are other reasons as well, then we can let go of that and we rewire the subconscious frequency architecture that is creating your reality. But I'm saying this because it's very important to me. You're not approaching this work from the perspective of, I gotta fix something. Something's wrong with me. No. Every single signal distortion that you're looking at is a very, very intelligent biological adaptation in response to a situation that threatened your safety. And when you understand that, we can soften and we can exhale, because we're not fixing stuff. We're not again in this urgency chasing, oh my God, I gotta do something. No, like you are actually, every single part of you, even the parts that are maybe creating suffering for you, because a lot of these things do create suffering. Having lack of money can create suffering. Having health issues because of nervous system dysregulation creates suffering. Like my autoimmune conditions have created a lot of fucking suffering for me. And still, when seen from that larger, bigger picture, we can understand all of them are a very intelligent biological adaptation, which is perfect given the situation that our body and our system and our subconscious was in, okay? And what we are actually doing here is that we are making your truth, who you are at your core, your authentic frequency, your authentic identity, we're making it feel safe again. Where you can speak your truth, where you can show up and say what you want to say, where you can post content that actually sounds like you instead of using ChatGPT for everything and tweaking it 60 million times because you're freaking out about someone canceling you, what fucking ever, right? We are making that version of you feel safe again in your nervous system. And when your truth feels safe, then coherence will return automatically. And your reality will shift extremely quickly.